Pilgrim's Progress. John Bunyan. I saw a man in worn-out clothes, with the Bible in one hand, and a heavy burden on his back. John Bunyan was born in 1628 in the small village of Elstow, about 3 kilometers south of Bedford, England, to Father Thomas Bunyan and Mother, Margaret Bentley. Bunyan's grandfather was a peddler, and his father was a tinker who repaired pots and pans. Later, Bunyan followed in his father's footsteps. According to the baptismal register of Elstow Church, Bunyan was baptized on November 30th, 1628, and his first 2 children were also baptized in this church. The 3 literary giants representing British literature, Shakespeare, Milton, and Bunyan, are all deeply connected to the religious and educational reforms of 16th and 17th century England. Among them, Bunyan is unique. While Milton studied at the University of Cambridge and Shakespeare received education in a grammar school equivalent to today's high school curriculum, Bunyan had virtually no education. Bunyan often emphasized that he was born in a poor family and had not been able to learn anything, which seems to have been his special intention. That is, by emphasizing that he was merely an ignorant tinker with no qualifications in the physical sense, he sought to highlight that everything about him was entirely due to the help of the Holy Spirit, so that people would believe his insights came from the Holy Spirit. In 1644, when Bunyan was 16 years old, his mother died, and 2 months later, his father remarried. This caused a rift in Bunyan's relationship with his father, and he joined the army following a military conscription order in the Bedford area. At the time, England was divided into the royalist forces, which supported the king, and the parliamentarian forces, centered around the Puritans, who supported the Parliament, leading to a civil war. Bunyan was conscripted as one of the members assigned to the Bedford area and belonged to the parliamentarian army led by Sir Samuel Luke. Bunyan served for 3 years in Newport Pagnell, about 20 kilometers west of Bedford. During this time, he had to attend the worship at the St. Peter and St. Paul Church on the hill in the village, but he didn't actually have any faith. His military experience at this time became the foundation for vivid war descriptions in works like The Holy War. After 3 years, when his unit was disbanded, he returned to his hometown of Elstow and continued his work as a tinker. As the political situation changed, Bunyan was arrested. In 1660, when the Republic of Oliver Cromwell and his son Richard Cromwell came to an end and the restoration of King Charles II took place, all those who did not comply with the Church of England were expelled or imprisoned. Bunyan was arrested in November 1660 on charges of leading an illegal religious gathering and, in January 1661, was sentenced to 3 months in prison. Prison was an unfortunate blessing for Bunyan. It is an unfortunate event that a young man in his early 30s was deprived of his freedom and tied up for 12 years. During his 12 years in prison, he wrote at least 9 books, including Part 1 of the Pilgrim's Progress in 1678. As a result of the success of this book, Bunyan went on to write other allegorical works such as The Life and Death of Mr. Badman and The Holy War, as well as numerous other works in various genres. In total, he left behind over 60 published works. In British households, The Pilgrim's Progress was so widely read that it was present in almost every home alongside the Bible, and excluding the Bible can be considered the bestseller in the history of publishing. By 1938, the 250th anniversary of Bunyan's death, 1,300 editions were published. It has been adapted into movies, dramas, radio broadcasts, operas, and spread worldwide, translated and published in over 170 languages. The Pilgrim's Progress is a religious allegorical novel featuring characters with names such as Talkative, Sloth, Vanity, and Christian. It is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 is the adventure of Christian, and Part 2 is the adventure of his wife Christiana and their children. If you visit the Bunyan Meeting Free Church, built in honor of John Bunyan, today, you can see a series of 8 stained glass windows depicting the process of his spiritual journey. The first artwork shows Bunyan sitting in prison with a quill pen in hand, writing his famous work The Pilgrim's Progress. The first sentence of the book is inscribed around the perimeter of the artwork. I saw a man in worn-out clothes, with the Bible in one hand and a heavy burden on his back. In the second piece, the evangelist shows the way to the celestial city to Christian. Christian's face is a reflection of the evangelist's own face. In the third piece, Christian is depicted as laying down all his burdens at the foot of the cross. In the fourth piece, Christian is shown climbing uphill difficulty. In the fifth piece, Christian passes by lions and approaches the house beautiful. In the sixth work, Christian defeats the demon Apollyon. In the seventh piece, the character Faith helps the Christian. In the eighth piece, the Christian crosses the river of death with another character named Hope and enters into heaven. John Bunyan is portraying the final journey of a Christian who is born on this earth and heading towards heaven in the Pilgrim's Progress. The pilgrim carries the heavy burden of the world on his small back, holding the Bible in one hand as he travels towards the pilgrimage road leading to heaven, looking beyond this world. Preacher, John Bunyan, also known as the Eternal Preacher, was a renowned English writer and preacher. After 12 years of imprisonment, he was invited to be the preacher at Bedford Church in 1672 and also traveled on horseback to preach in various places. Due to his dedication, diligence, and passion as a preacher, Bunyan gained the nickname Bishop Bunyan. In 1688, Bunyan traveled through a severe storm to reconcile his estranged father and son in Reading, near London, and fell ill. He passed away on August 31, 1688, at the home of his friend John Studwick in Snow Hill, London. 3 years later, in 1691, his wife Elizabeth also passed away. Bunyan was laid to rest in Bunhill Fields, London, where many nonconformists who did not conform to the Church of England were buried, including Isaac Watts, the father of hymnody, novelist Daniel Defoe, poet and painter William Blake, theologian John Owen, and Susanna Wesley, the mother of John Wesley. Bunyan's tomb is prominently featured in Bunhill Fields, with a large stone tomb and a statue of Bunyan lying atop it. The statue was sculpted by Charles Spurgeon, who was known as the Prince of Preachers and held the last nonconformist sermon on May 21, 1862, before he passed away. The pedestal supporting the statue depicts the eternal pilgrim, who is carrying a heavy burden and journeying towards heaven, symbolizing Bunyan's own journey. John Bunyan, Puritan as a nonconformist, Bunyan's faith and scholarship were formed through reading books such as Arthur Dent's The Plain Man's Pathway to Heaven, Lewis Bailey's Practice of Piety, and John Fox's Acts and Monuments of the Christian Church, as well as through personal encounters with nonconformist leaders like John Owen and William Dill. John Owen worked to secure Bunyan's release from prison during his second imprisonment, and when asked why he often attended Bunyan's sermons despite being an Oxford-educated scholar and former vice-chancellor of Oxford, Owen replied, "If I could possess the tinker's abilities for preaching, I would willingly relinquish all my learning." Owen was buried in Bunhill Fields in 1683, and 5 years later, Bunyan was laid to rest next to him.
Sing